Hey guys, how you doing? Hope you're doing okay. Gonna read through the full article. There's a link in the description. It is a tragic situation. A father has been jailed for life, albeit with a minimum 8-year term attached to that. So it's possible he may get out after a mere 8 years. So he's been convicted for life for killing his son. One of the peculiar aspects to this case compared to other cases is that directly following the attack on the son, when the son was 2 years of age, the son was severely brain damaged. So he survived, but he was severely brain damaged, severely disabled, and the son died 18 years later at the age of 20. That was in 2019. And following the son's death, it had been established that the injuries were caused by the father's attack when the boy was 2 years of age. So, following the boy's death, the father has been trialed and convicted of having killing the son. So we're going to look through the details. A violent dad who left his 2-year-old son severely brain damaged by smothering him has been jailed for life following his death 18 years after the attack. Alan Bird, this scumbag, 48 years of age, received the life sentence today with a minimum 8-year term after a jury convicted him following a trial at Leeds Crown Court last week. So this happened in England. And just to repeat myself, he's been given a life sentence, and he did attack a 2-year-old boy at the time. So it was 18 years ago, or more than 18 years ago now. But it was a 2-year-old boy that he smothered to the point that his own son, to the point that they became severely brain damaged. So to me, a life sentence is fully justified. But it is very concerning that in the United Kingdom, you have life sentences with minimum sentences as low as 8 years. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. Why doesn't life mean life? Or how the hell can life mean, oh, we may get out in 8 years? That makes no sense. But back to the article. The abattoir manager inflicted permanent and irreparable brain damage on his son, Lewis Turner, by suffocating him in an attack in 2001 when his son was just 2 years old. He had already served an 8-year prison sentence over this initial attack after he pleaded guilty to inflicting grievous bodily harm with intent. So he's already been jailed for 8 years due to this same occurrence, this time that he severely attacked his son, tried to smother him to death, but given that the boy later died and the death was attributed to the damage which was caused by the attack, the father was further charged, further went through a trial, and has been sentenced for a second time. So here is Lewis Turner, who died at the age of 19. In 2019, he died. So he had permanent brain injuries following the incident where his father attempted to suffocate him, or did suffocate him, in 2001 when he was a mere 2 years of age. So he had his life taken away from him. So the father was rearrested and put on trial for murder following Lewis's death in July 2019. Prosecutors said he is criminally responsible for his son's death, and a jury returned a unanimous guilty verdict on March the 22nd, sentencing him today. And by the way, that's a couple of days ago, the 29th, yes, 2 days ago. Sentencing him a couple of days ago. The judge, Mr. Justice Jacobs, told the father, 48-year-old Alan Bird, Lewis, as a consequence of your attack, had suffered irreversible brain damage that left him with profound problems. The jury was sure that your original actions in 2001 were a significant cause of Lewis's death in 2019. In July 2002, you pleaded guilty at this court to inflicting grievous bodily harm with intent and an offence of child cruelty. That reflected the generally cruel manner in which you treated him before you smothered him. Jurors heard how Lewis, the boy, developed a myriad of conditions which included cerebral palsy as a result of his father's attack. His speech, hearing, and sight were impaired, and he had to be fed through a tube. Lewis was found dead on July the 18th, 2019, at the home where he lived with his adoptive parents in Leeds, United Kingdom, England. The cause of death was given as peritonitis, caused by an infection from his feeding tube. The father was charged with murder following Lewis's death, as there is no time limit as to how long someone remains criminally responsible. So the prosecutor told the jury that the death of Lewis Turner was not some freak infection that took the life of a healthy boy. It was instead the final consequence of a deliberate assault on Lewis by his father. His feeding tube caused the infection to develop. He only had that feeding tube as a direct consequence of the defendant attacking him. So hopefully you've understood this. I know when someone reads an article out, it can, be a little bit boring. You can drift away. I do. But I agree with that argument from the prosecutor. The boy died due to an infection caused by, his or derived from him using a feeding tube. But the only reason he was using a feeding tube was because of the attack that was inflicted upon him by his father when he was 2 years of age. Had it not been for that, he wouldn't have had to need a feeding tube. So as delayed a situation as it is, as delayed a consequence that it is still a consequence. It is still due to the father's action that has caused his direct death, his actual death. The father was Lewis's natural father, and he attacked his son on the night of September 29th, 2001, when Lewis was just 2 years old. This happened in West Yorkshire. Paramedics found Lewis covered in bruises and being deathly pale when they were called to the property. He was rushed to hospital. A scan revealed he had suffered devastating injuries as a result of his brain being starved of oxygen. So he was being smothered. The father later admitted to a social worker that he was responsible for causing the injuries and had done so by holding a pillow over Lewis's face for a few minutes. So I'm going to wrap things up at this point. I mean, there are a few more details, but that's really the bulk of it. There's another picture of Lewis. So, he had a normal life taken away from him, severely disabled, forced to eat through a feeding tube. And it was an infection caused by the feeding tube that led to his death. And the father has been jailed for life, albeit with a minimum of 8 years sentence, 8-year term, because the father admitted to smothering Lewis when he was just 2 years of age. He smothered him with a pillow, and he died 18 years later at the age of 20 or the age of 19. So I'm going to leave things at this point. There is a link in the description if you wanted to go through that. There's no GoFundMe. Yeah, I don't know if that's appropriate. Perhaps it isn't. But I'm going to wrap things up here. It is an absolute tragedy. Such an odd case in my mind. Such an odd case, but a tragic case. I'm glad that the father has been found guilty of murder. I'm glad that he has been given a life sentence. I think that's just, even though he's served 8 years previously. I think a life sentence is just. But I am once more disappointed, shocked, and disturbed by this proviso that seems to be put in place with UK, England sentencing, where even those convicts that are given a life sentence, they seem to have this opportunity for eligibility for parole after a fairly short period of time. A life sentence with a minimum 8-year term doesn't make sense to me. A life sentence with a minimum 25-year term, okay, that makes sense. But an 8-year term, that's not life if it's 8 years, is it? So I'll wrap things up here. If you do like this type of content, please give me a little bit of support. A like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit, and I'll thank you for your time.